Welcome acolytes, today I'm reacting to Muda This Really Worries Me. And I am reacting, I actually wanted to make a commentary out of it, but I simply don't have the time for the next few weeks, so let's just see if this will go okay, alright, and I'm gonna try to actually go the commentary route way more often, but simply right now the time just, it's not really there. But as it is, let's just start and see what Muda has to say about the things that he has to say. And by the way, if you like my content, leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment, press the notification button. Good. Let's start.
A lot of anxiety, and I'm on a part of YouTube that honestly freaks me out a little bit. But it's part of YouTube that's small, tiny, and one that I love. And the reason I'm on this side of YouTube is because, honestly, when I'm looking through the news and I see World War III effectively trending, and the world in the state that it is now, it freaks me out, ladies and gentlemen. You know, when you're looking at the entire news and doom scrolling and realizing that, oh my god, everyone's talking about facing World War III.
I'm gonna be completely honest here. I don't think that World War III is realistic right now. And it's not because I don't think that it cannot happen. No, I'm gonna be honest. It is a point of my personal belief that as long as we can actually get a lot of money out of each other, this is fine, this won't happen. And it's pretty simple, it's only about the money. That's all. That's honestly all. There is no extra argument I can do about it, it's just about the money. And as long as the high leaders get a lot of money, they will confirm with each other or just talk to each other and say, oh, there is a pickle in our jar and we have to get rid of it. If someone like Putin would now attack, let's say, other country than one that actually isn't in the NATO, then yes, then there will be a bit of a, action. But right now, Putin isn't dumb enough. Because the technology these days is just way too hard to actually ignore. And it's not even because I would say that Russia has a little bit of a plus here. They actually have people that were in the military that have a few years of experience about the entire thing. But, the mass. Because I think even if Europe is, well, on their own, still Russia will just break on a hand of the mass. And if America grabbers within, and America will, so yeah, let's just see. Let's just see what comes.
And we're trying to ignore it. The reality is, ladies and gentlemen, I live in a part of the world, I live in an understanding that at some point, everything can come to an end. Now, I make videos like this, I don't know if it's like a coping mechanism, or usually it's because, ladies and gentlemen, I've come to the realization the older I get that the world can come to an end. But I like to believe in the good of humanity. I like to think that at the very worst times, we all can somehow come together and move on to the next day. Now look, the world can end, okay? The world could literally end in the next 5 minutes, alright? Boom, Fallout style. But you know what? I've realized that as long as you spend your days smiling, having a good time, living every day like it's basically the last, and you come to realize that at some point the whole ride stops, but you gotta enjoy the time you're on the tracks, I guess you could say. That's pretty much the best thing, the best mentality, or the most sane mentality that you can have. Now,
I'm gonna be honest, yes, he's correct about it. That's actually the best thing you can do. Because at the end of the day, yeah, if it comes, it comes. I have no influence about it, so I'm not gonna worry about it. It's, yeah. It just, enjoy as long as it lasts, it's fine.
If you ever have looked up channels on YouTube, you probably realize that there is a lot of channels that, at least, or not a lot of channels anymore, but there's a fair amount of people that make emergency alert scenarios. And this is stuff that I find to be genuinely scary, anxiety driving. Now, you probably heard the term analog horror, and you probably have visited a lot of horror channels that have covered analog horror stories, right? But this is like true analog horror, in my opinion. This is basically recreations of what are actual emergency alert scenarios. Now, what is an emergency alert situation? Well, again, it's basically a system that every country, by the way, has, where when something really messed up happens, like a natural disaster, like nuclear weapons being struck towards us, or at least arriving, then it's one of those things that basically plays on television, the radio, internet, Amber Alerts get sent out to phones, basically letting you know that things are about to happen, okay? Here's what you can do. Now, of course, throughout history, there have been actual real-life emergency alert scenarios. And before we continue, I just want to state...
And yes, he's correct about it. By the way, every country has that. And I don't know if you, or specifically in Bavaria, if you actually, you get like probe things where they just say, yeah, this is, here you can actually see this. And there is a warning sign, like a lot of tests that come. Or is it twice a year? I think it's about twice a year. Or even only once. Yeah, it happens. It happens so... It doesn't happen often. And it's just a warning, so yeah, he's correct about that. But still don't... It's not that bad. Like, it's nothing bad.
State for the record that I'm not going to be playing any specific tones, because at least as far as the United States goes, it is actually illegal to play or rebroadcast those tones. And it's not necessarily...
Yes, and it has a freaking reason, because you know these days a lot of trolls, like a lot of people and scammers would actually use that, or even like just basically... handy developers, of course not handy developers, hackers or such would actually misconstrue to panic people in, so giving them the fear of the state in is actually a good thing, because, well, in this specific case, yes, it's a good thing just because, well, they can do a lot of shenanigans with that could end in lives lost, so I'm actually all about specifically that. Yeah.
Certainly something for YouTube as well, but to give you an idea, according to the United States, the EAS is a national public warning system through which broadcasters, cable television providers, wireless cable providers, wireline video providers supply communications capability to the president to address the American public during a national emergency, okay? Federal, state, local authorities may use the EAS to deliver important emergency information, such as weather info, Amber Alerts, and they take it incredibly seriously. The reason why the FCC and the US government doesn't want you rebroadcasting this shit is because it can trigger a chain reaction if you're in like a television studio or a place where they have alert systems like this ready to go. So this is one of these Sage digital index systems, which again, if you have an emergency alert going on, if it hears the tones, you know, if you ever hear like an emergency alert broadcast where they sound really loud in your ears, it's because they're transmitting data. And if that data gets daisy chained into this system and other broadcasting studios are hearing it, it starts a daisy chain of emergency alerting. And the government don't want a fake emergency alert system going out, okay? People get really scared. Back in the day, there was a fake emergency alert sent out, a mistake one in Hawaii, where people thought, oh shit, ballistic missiles are coming to us. Imagine waking up and seeing the ballistic missiles threat coming towards you in Hawaii. Bro, you think the end of the world is coming at you, and then you find out you're being trolled? It was just a fake seize? Get out of here. So anyways, a lot of countries in the world have it. For instance, this is...
Yeah, and it's very dangerous. You cannot underestimate how freaking panic, like if panic induces, a lot of people will just freaking go apeshit and just do stuff they wouldn't do normally, so.
Aramco Channel 3 in Saudi Arabia when they talk about like a scud alert, and it'll take you back to the past. It literally is analog horror. Watch this.
ارتدي القناع الواقي ابق في مكان آمن واصل مشاهدتك لتلفزيون القناة 3
Damn.
أو الاستماع للراديو على محطة FM.
Yeah, imagine like having to hear that. You're just watching your television show and then boom, it comes up. And this is basically a Scud missile alert system, okay, that kicked up somewhere around the Gulf War back in '91. And of course, this is an 8-minute long broadcast, so you got to be sort of sitting there watching this until you hear the all clear alert being sent out. And then, of course, this isn't the only country that has an EAS system. There's other places. Every country has it. So back in 2016, this is an EAS broadcast regarding one of the natural disasters in Japan. Watch this one. Again, it's not all related to like the end of the world nuclear scenario. It's sometimes designed entirely in countries where earthquakes and natural disasters are a real thing. And it gets real scary. Watch this.
今震度5弱の地域が追加されました。茨城県の北部と栃木県の北部でも震度5弱を観測しました。震源が海底ですと津波の恐れがあります。今新しい情報です。津波警報が出ました。津波警報が出ました。今すぐ逃げてください。津波警報が出ました。
I think we get the gist.
With these emergency alert scenarios, the anxiety goes through the roof, and obviously, as you're watching this kind of stuff, the narrators, because obviously they have to be like upfront and real about it, right? Like they gotta tell you something bad is happening. It's not like they're underselling it or overhyping it. They're just literally relaying a pretty scary situation. And again, it all just compounds to my anxiety.
This is the Wartime Broadcasting Service. This country has been attacked with nuclear weapons. Communications are not yet known. We shall bring you further information. Meanwhile,
How?
Yeah, and by the way, if you watch those things, somewhere in your back brain you will freaking start to panic. So if you're one of the people that actually panic relatively easily, don't watch those. Don't effing watch those. It's gonna build up so much anxiety that you won't be happy. Let's just say it like that. You won't be happy at the end of the day. This is just, be careful if you watch those. You watch if you want to inform yourself, yeah, of course. I mean, and I cannot stop you, by the way. Just do it as you want. But those things are really anxiety inducing. They are really, really bad, and just be careful how you enjoy it. Let's say it like this. Enjoy.
How is that more calmly delivered than the tsunami warning? Jesus Christ. Now, thankfully, that was a UK emergency alert scenario that apparently was never ever broadcasted, okay? Thank God for that, ladies and gentlemen. Jesus Christ.
Lorsque vous entendrez cette sirène et que vous verrez ce message, cela signifiera que le ministère de la Justice a lancé le dispositif d'urgence pour retrouver un enfant enlevé. Alerte, enlève, date.
Damn scary. Like they're like so intense. It's like watching an episode of 24. Jesus Christ. Now, of course, some of these are obviously tests. Thank Lord for that. Nobody wants an actual, wartime message being sent out. That would be goddamn scary.
Yeah,
now, of course, while those are
that.
real, actual EAS scenarios, there's obviously channels that are designed to make fake versions out there. Now, of course, some of these channels, obviously the last time we covered it, I want to say around a year and a half ago, were kind of, like, there was a fair amount of channels out there, and of course, ever since I covered them, there's been a whole lot of, I guess you could say, EAS scenario channel drama, but also some of these channels have sort of been gone or sort of thrown out by YouTube's algorithms just because of the possibility of it being detected under reused content, which I think is unfair. At the end of the day, these channels create some pretty compelling analog horror type scenarios, stuff that you can put in the back and just listen to. If you ever just want to, like, if you ever just want to, like, watch some really scary stuff that really piques the hairs on the back of your neck. Again, and some of these scenarios are obviously super duper fake ones, like the Skynet scenario, for instance, where they just input, obviously, in amongst actual, like, videos, kind of simulating a real TV broadcast, and they throw up the emergency alert scenario. The Strategic Air Command has issued a national emergency. That artificial intelligence Skynet? Yeah, we're fucked, boys. It's taken over. And of course, for various other channels, there's obviously like Alert World, there's Harvester, K4 EAS, and of course, there's a whole bunch of channels that have like a few thousand subscribers or anything. And of course, you saw some of the drama that I was talking about too was literally one of my favorite actual like EAS channels, even a year ago, around the time when I covered it, shortly after, was exposing predators apparently in this community, or at least adjacent to it, which is insane to think, all right? Kind of wild. But one of my all-time favorite scenarios too, 2 years ago by Harvester right here, has some of the most like chilling stuff that I've seen in terms of like EAS scenarios. Like, watch some of this. It's a full 29-minute video, but I'm going to show you like a little snippet of it that just always gets me when I play this in the middle of the night, like at 2 in the morning.
exchanges are occurring between the US, China, and Korea.
Message dated 19th of the 5th, 21. With nuclear exchanges continuing between the three parties, normal life has now collapsed in all three nations. Estimates for the death toll puts the total at 22.9 million in the United States, 79.2 million for China and 900,000 for North Korea. Our military has used computer models to determine that the US death toll could reach 75 million by early July. To prevent this,
you know, you sort of put yourself into a situation where, like, sometimes you gotta, like, pretend that you're in, like, a bunker when the apocalypse happens, and, like, this is the last few things you get to hear, like, the literal last messages from, like, the remnants of governments. You know, after, like, a nuclear attack happens, and, like, the World War III scenario, when shit hits the fan, we all know that, like, the governments that we hold near and dear to us today, they're all going to collapse and be gone, okay? At that moment, there is no US anymore. Regardless of whatever continuity of government stuff that they've got set going forward, when there's no world anymore, there's not going to be any country anytime after.
Yeah, that's... right now he's basically repeating himself all the time. Is there anything interesting that he's talking about?
Stay tuned. Listen to some of those emergency alert scenarios. What the government will do in the event that something drastic...
miles in the blast site. Miles.
Like, when you see the quality of this EAS towards the tail end of a wartime scenario, you know, shit's really just hit the fan. So obviously, this is something that always interests me as well when I think about, like, the world of nuclear weapons and attacks as well, too. And of course, if you want to actually read up on, like, how to prepare for, like, a possible nuclear detonation, FEMA actually has a complete, like, 258-page guide that basically walks you through effectively what should happen and what the government will do in the event that something drastic like this actually occurs. Now, of course, a shorthand explanation...
That's something interesting. Good.
...is the government actually has, like, a ready gov thing, which, like, if the worst ever occurs, right, the worst situation, they tell you, you got a bright flash that causes temporary blindness for less than a minute, because, yes, they are that bright, okay, bombs are huge. You've got a blast wave that can literally damage structures several miles out, by the way, radiation, fire and heat, an electromagnetic pulse, and then, of course, fallout, okay, which is literally spreading sickness. So, again, it's one of those situations, it's a really horrific situation, which if you don't die, you know, like, in this, like, if you're not underneath and you're not part of, like, the first few people that are vaporized, most people, unfortunately, are going to succumb to a really painful death from, like, radiation down the road, okay? And again, what the government tells you is, like, get inside to the nearest building, okay? Brick concrete are the best. Remove your contaminated clothing and wipe and wash your unprotected skin. Go to the basement, stay away from the roof. And then, of course, you gotta stay in for 24 hours, unless local authorities provide other instructions. Families should stay where they are inside. Reunite later, and then keep your pets inside too. And of course, you know, you've also got stay tuned. Listen to some of those emergency alert scenarios. And of course, if you got battery operated radios, go for it. Cell phone, text messaging, internet, yeah, they're definitely most likely going to be unavailable.
Yeah.
Now, one of the interesting things from Princeton University here is they actually made a video called Plan A, where they kind of showcase a actual simulation of what a nuclear attack or like the end of the world, like, you know, DEF CON situation looks like. So again, if you play this right over here, you can see that literally the US launches their payload from here, and of course you've got submarines sending out their payloads as well too. And you gotta remember, some of these missiles are like MIRVs, so like they split into like 8 different missiles and cover like a massive area. And of course you've got the Chinese, the Russians launching their stuff. And if you ever notice something, it's all happening way above this equator. This actual thing fails to also, I believe, capture like Pakistan, India, and other like nuclear armed countries. But again, the idea is generally if you live in South America, Africa, and again, Australia, you should relatively be fine. Or if you're like one of the 6 people that live in like Siberia, you should be good. But it's one of those situations where even their estimation here is the casualty in 45 minutes reaches up to 85.3 million people. And it's a harrowing reminder of like what the world can look like after 2 hours of like...
By the way, this is the worst case scenario, but yes, he's actually correct about it. Yes, it is what
us finally losing our shit against each other, right? And it's why some countries in the world Japan and Canada, from what I understanding, have a no nuclear policy, right? Even though these are two countries that can build an arsenal in a record amount of time if they needed to. But because of the horrors that have been inflicted in the past by bombs that were literally a fraction of what we have these days, yeah, this is something that some countries definitely don't want to be a part of. And it's kind of freaky to think about it, right? Because it's a situation where the timeline of this is super wild. If in the event that like the bombs get fired, let's say that the United States would not be the aggressor, they're the ones being hit at. It's literally a situation where, from my understanding, you literally wake the president up in the middle of the night and they have like maybe a couple minutes to like get their bearings together and basically retaliate. And it's a weird question to ask somebody, right? Because you're one person and somebody has to ask you, hey, do you want to end human history in the world today? And you basically have to say yes. If you don't say yes, your country gets flattened, all right? So you basically respond yes.
Yeah.
You go to a bunker and all of human history is done right there. It's one of the most morally fucked things if you think about it, right? And sometimes I wonder if like presidents or like any world leader truly understands the gravity of that situation if they were ever forced into it.
I think most of them understand, but they most don't. No. They just hope they never have to do it. That's my assumption. Yeah. No. I truly lost the faith in our elite. So no.
But yeah, it's a wild situation to think. And again, going back to the EAS scenario, it gets even more darker.
这是香港政府的广播，我们非常悲痛地报告政府解散。在对中国大陆进行多次核袭击后，该地区遭受了毁灭性的影响，可能导致650万人死亡。
And it's one of the coolest parts about these EA scenario storytellings. They usually start out with like high quality footage, and towards the end, when like the world is done, they switch to like 480p, 144p, like analog broadcasting, because obviously as the world is crumbling and deteriorating, the ability to broadcast high quality footage goes away. And I think what's scary is like when you read the words, the government has like dissolved, and hey, listen, we wish you the best of luck. It's all pretty much over at this point. Nothing is more like pessimistic and scary when you really think about that. And it makes you a little bit more thankful to wake up in a world where it's not like this yet, okay? And honestly, in reality, I really don't think we'll get to that point. It's one of those things where when you doom scroll enough, you kind of end up believing some of this stuff for a minute, until eventually, you know, you kind of have to pinch yourself and realize that no country ever really wants the world to end. It's in no one's actual benefit or interest. And you hope that because of that belief, nobody's ever going to flip that switch and end it all, even if we do get close to the edge, right? Intentions. And again, when it comes to other emergency alert scenario channels, when it's not about the end of the world or natural disasters, it's literally sometimes about like actual cringe shit, I would say. Like the Sega Final Channel broadcast, which is obviously the quality on these things are pretty well done. It's just whenever you start involving SCPs and shit like that, you tend to lose me for a little bit. You find some fun stuff like the United States annexation of Canada, because to be fair with you, Canada is basically what, like the 52nd, 53rd state of the US anyways? So you guys taking us over isn't necessarily going to be the most shocking scenario if shit truly hits the fan. Oh man, they made a whole game about this? This game uses the numpad? Use the period for the pound key? No way, dude. If you don't have a numpad, use the number key on top. Alright, whatever. Let's start this one off. I gotta tell the president that we don't want the world to end? Jesus. You are the chairman of the USSR due to a technical failure. A 50-ton megaton nuclear warhead is on its way to New York City? Oh, Jesus Christ.
Okay,
oh
we're gonna
God.
skip that, and I think you get the gist. It's a bit of panic-inducing things. He just doomscrolled way too much. And as he also said, and I think a lot of people think the same thing, that it's just unrealistic that anyone will just nuke the entire planet because, well, first of all, it ends lives. Second of all, you won't live in the same luxury you live right now, so better be prepared to sacrifice that if you want a war. That's just something that can happen, and especially the casualties. As always, it just World War III isn't the thing you will actually like I don't think I'm gonna. It's not gonna start in my lifetime. I extremely doubt it. And well, I am a old fuck, so well, younglings. Let's hope not, huh? Eh? But as it is, acolytes. Good night.